This is my story of the years that I was in the Mafia. The reason I can't show my face is because I'm still in the Mafia. Or some people have referred to it, the American mob. I was elevated to a boss and I made millions of dollars. So this is the second part of my story. So I'll get to the point. So as I said before, I was under boss. Bosses. His name was Mr. Manzano, and my father was an accountant who worked for him. And by now, my brothers had got into the Mafia as well. And like I said in my last broadcast, I love my brothers very much, and I didn't want to see them taken advantage of. So I ended up getting in myself as a lower level. I started out as a soldier, as most do, unless you have particular skill to offer, something of that nature. And I quickly moved up, not just because I was a genius, but it was the way I handled things. I didn't always use violence to solve the situation, because as many men in the business would tell you, dead man can't pay you money. So if you use violence to solve every situation, and what you have is a lot of dead bodies and no money. So other families would ask my boss and my father could they utilize my services, especially if they didn't want the violence to occur, and they prefer they would go and reason with these people. And so sometimes I would do that. And I started making money because what I did was I put much of the money that I was making into legitimate businesses. And I won't tell you every single detail because, like I said, I'm still making millions of dollars from many of those businesses, but many of them were legitimate businesses. And then the only thing I was expected to do, obviously, was kick up to the boss, make sure that he got his cut. And they didn't necessarily ask where the money was coming from, and I didn't necessarily volunteer the information. And I was making millions of dollars, so they can clearly see I was a good earner. And I did perpetrate some violent acts. I did what is called barnstorming, which is something of a collector if it was need be, because I knew for me to be effective in the Mafia and to be effective in the related business activities, I had to be ready to perpetrate violence, and many times I did. And once again, it was my intent to move up as quickly as possible to protect my family. Even though my father was an accountant, I knew that he didn't have any worry, but my brothers, once again, was loyal to this thing of ours, and therefore they were willing to follow the rules and regulations and do whatever was needed to do to please the bosses. Because you start out in a crew and you move up. But because I was younger, I ended up, fortunately, directly under the boss. And so that helped to perpetrate my rise into the family. And it became clear that once again I was a good earner. But I think one thing also that the boss of our family saw was that I was very low key, so that he knew that was something he could utilize, because it became clear that the Mafia itself was moving in a different direction and things were starting to change. And it wasn't like it was in the old days where you took a gun and it solved every problem. You had to know how to negotiate. And in many cases, I was sent to take care of a situation and maybe murder someone or things like that. Many times that was not the situation. And I don't want you to get the impression that not killing when you're told to kill somebody is something that everybody could do, because it was clear that the bosses, they said they wanted things done a certain way. That's the way they wanted them done, but I had reached a point where I could explain to my boss that this was a different direction I felt we should go in. And what it said to him was that not only could I be trusted to do what I was asked to do, but to come out with a better situation, which he respected and he understood. So he somewhat gave me a free hand. And the only thing about that, you are required to vouch for people. And I will explain that in the next episode when I speak. But like I said, I was making millions of dollars. The bosses were happy with me. And that's always a good thing. So I'll be speaking to this again in the future.